Easter, Clemens, Kernersville, King, and everybody online. Are you ready for some good news? There is no fear so great, no disappointment so deep, no failure so final, that the glorious good news of the resurrection of Christ and His love for us cannot redeem and transcend. There is no past trauma, pain, regret, or grief that cannot, in some way, some beautiful way, be made okay if you encounter the love of the risen Savior. Well, I have been given by one of our staff sort of a quota of the number of times I can use a golf illustration. Been told I do too many of them. I won't tell you who it was. His initials is all Chris Lawson. But anyway, he told me this week, if it was about Rory McIlroy and the Masters, it was okay because everybody's thinking about Rory and the Masters that he won this weekend. And if you weren't one of the ones who were the 20 million watching him win on Sunday, let me tell you a little bit about Rory McIlroy, born 1989 in Northern Ireland, a child golf prodigy. There's video of him chipping golf balls into the family washing machine, slept with a golf club in his hands. Both his parents took extra jobs to fund his golfing ambitions, and Rory, at age 17, became amateur world champion. He won his first PGA event right in our back door down the street in Charlotte at Quail Hollow, shooting a course record 62 to beat Phil Mickelson by 4 shots. He was incredible, and everybody was wowed by this young person with his soaring irons and his youthful vitality. And after that win at the Quail in 2010, he went in 2011 to the Masters, the sacred grounds of Augusta National, and shot a 65 on the first day to take the lead, and went into the final day with his baby face and his huge drives and his unbelievable spirit with a 4-shot lead, and everything was looking great. The announcers were just about polishing the trophy for him until hole number 10. And it fell apart. He hit his drive and it landed somewhere near Alabama. He made a triple on that hole. On the iconic number 12 par 3, he 4-putted. He shot an 80 that day 14 years ago and didn't even make the top 10. He won the other majors, U.S. Open, PGA Championship, British Open, but he never could win the Masters. He had chances. Chance in 2015, playing in the last round and final pairing with Jordan Spieth, but I think Rory shot a 6-over on that day, and he maybe came in 10th. He had a great chance in 2018, playing in the final pairing with Patrick Reed, and once again, he bogeyed on the last day, hole number 3, number 4, number 11. He finished about 6 shots behind Patrick Reed. It was like he just couldn't win the Masters and has been hanging like an albatross around his neck and the weight of it all. So when he took a 2-shot lead into the final round on Sunday, the pressure was on and he felt it. Later, he said he was really nervous and he double bogeyed the first hole. It's like you could feel the whole golf world just groaning, like, here we go again. But he rode this roller coaster, and somehow he was really looking pretty good going into hole 13. He had a 3 or a 4-shot lead at that point. Looked like he was a shoe-in to win. Not much you could do to lose as well as he was playing. Hit a good drive, and then he played a conservative second shot on the par 5, and now all he had left was a small chip. Just hit it 30 feet left of the pin. It'll funnel down to the hole on the right. Don't even think about the right side of it. There's a creek in front of you. Anybody could hit this shot. I've gone to Topgolf with the pastors before. Barrett could make this shot. Pastor Chuck could. Brandon could. Pastor Chris could have made this. Or maybe he'd have pulled it over in the bushes on the left. But anybody that plays golf could make this little chip shot, just easiest one you could get. And Rory McIlroy hit one of the worst shots I've ever seen a pro hit. Hit it to the right of the flag and short, goes into the creek. He makes a double bogey. Now, all of a sudden, the tournament's in jeopardy, and you can feel the implosion happening. You can see it on his face. You can feel the weight of it. And everybody that cares about Rory is saying, here we go again. He stayed on this roller coaster, and he gets to hole number 18. Thankfully, he's up by one stroke. All he has to do is par that hole, and he wins the Masters finally. Hits a good drive, but his second shot goes in a bunker. Plays out of the sand. He's got a putt that's very makeable, and he just doesn't even get close with that putt and bogeys it. So now there's going to be a sudden death playoff between Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose, who is on fire, has made 10 birdies that day, and they got to go back to the tee of number 18. On the way back to the tee, later, Rory said, his caddy said to him, I love this, well, mate, if they told us on Monday that we'd be here on Sunday in a two-man playoff to win the Masters, we'd have taken it, wouldn't we? It was the perfect reset mentality. And Rory just striped his drive down the middle, and then he hit a perfect gap wedge that went right over the pin, used the slope behind the hole, brought the ball back to about 3 feet for an easy birdie. Justin made his par. All Rory had to do was tap in the little birdie putt, and in it went, and Rory just collapsed down onto the golf green, shaking with 1,000 emotions. Later, he would say it was more relief than it was joy, but then the joy would come after that, because isn't it amazing how if there is a triumph that's true enough and good enough, it somehow changes the whole story. That one victory can redefine one's story such that it doesn't take away the pain of the big loss he had at the Masters in 2011, but somehow this makes it okay. And Rory McIlroy won't be remembered as a Masters tournament choker. He'll be remembered as a Masters champion and invited back to play every year. Isn't it possible that there could be an encounter, a victory, a triumph, a piece of good news that was so good that it would not undo all the pain of your life, but change the whole story? That's what Easter's about. And everywhere you look in the Gospels, what you see on Easter Day, before the disciples encounter the risen Christ, is that they are depressed, they are dejected, and they are fearful. And in our text today in John 20, they are so fearful that the text says they were behind locked doors for fear of the Jews. But when Jesus came into their midst, miraculously, lovingly, wonderfully, it changed, and they pivoted to joy because of the words of Jesus, peace be with you. This whole year, if you're new with us, you need to know we have been on a journey toward the untroubled heart, the very promise of Jesus in John chapter 14 in this beautiful discourse with the disciples when he said, I leave you peace. My peace I give you. And it's not as the world gives. Peace be with you. Let me start with this. I don't hold it against the disciples that they were afraid. I mean, they shouldn't have been. Jesus had told them repeatedly that this is exactly what's going to happen. Like he said in Luke 9:21, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, on the third day be raised. He told them over and over. But I still don't hold it against them. I mean, this was the Roman Empire. Pastor Chris told us last week that there could have been as many as 9,000 people executed during that Holy Week. Rome had the power to punish. And now that Jesus had been crucified, they were telling what would happen to the disciples, and they were devastated. They were traumatized. They've given up their jobs, their careers, their life, their families to go follow this rabbi. And now it's not just the deep disappointment and grief of the crucifixion of the Savior, but it's like that feeling of, was I just wrong about him? Is the whole story over and the whole story is wrong? And here's what I love, is that these fearful disciples that are really so afraid, they've locked themselves in and isolated themselves, that they don't deserve what Jesus gives them, but he comes to them. It's interesting, we really don't know where they are. We don't know how many of them there are there. Could be that it was just his small group of disciples that he normally was hanging out with, except for Thomas. We know he wasn't there because of the ensuing verses that tell us that. Maybe it was a large group of his followers that were all there. And we don't really know how in Jesus' resurrected form he suddenly just appeared. Did he have a glorified body that could somehow both be real and touchable and eat fish with them on the Sea of Galilee, but also move through walls? I don't know. But it's not important who was there or even where they were or how Jesus got there miraculously. What's important is that he came. What's important is that Jesus did not decide that because they, those disciples, had been so unbelieving and so fearful that they didn't deserve his presence. Jesus isn't like that. In fact, on one occasion in Matthew 9:11, he said, "Those who are well have no need of physician, but those who are sick." Jesus comes to those that are weak and vulnerable and hurting. He doesn't stay away. He doesn't stand outside the door and demand that they get their act together before he would give them the privilege of an audience with Jesus. He just comes into the middle of the pain. And of all the things that he could have said to them, he comes to them with peace. But I was thinking this way, how funny some of the things that in the flesh, like I might have said, could have gone for the sarcasm, like, thanks for all the support back there. I really felt the love, guys, when I was being crucified. Or could have gone for the shame, tisk, tisk, shame on you, faithless ones. Could have gone for humor. I leave for 3 days and this is the ministry you come up with, a fear convention. Or could have just spiked the football, told you so. Or could have just gone for harshness. What's wrong with you? Get over it. But that's not the way Jesus spoke to them. Peace be with you. Twice he says it, peace be with you. It harkens back to the old Hebrew concept, shalom, which is not just the absence of conflict. It is total well-being. It is prospering of spirit, soul, and body. He comes with peace. I was in a conversation some months ago that didn't go well, and I got vulnerable enough to share how I was hurt, even shed a few tears. And the other wasn't ready for it and just said to me, "Get over it." I had a hard time not replaying that conversation. And I've been so sad about it, not just because I had hoped for connection and empathy, but also sad because you realize how difficult it is to ever be able to be vulnerable with someone who has simply just overlooked your pain. See this and see it well. Note it in your heart. Jesus doesn't speak to the disciples like that, nor to you. He doesn't say, "Get over it. Why are you so afraid?" He says, "Peace be with you." And he breathes on them to show them the power of his own Spirit that will be coming fully into their lives. He loves you. The promise that he had made in John 14, "I leave you peace, my peace I give you," that promise stood even though the disciples had failed, and the promise still stands. In the end, it's not just that Jesus appears and he's resurrected, it's that he appears with love. At the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona, one of the athletes favored to win in the 400-meter men's race was a guy from Britain named Derek Redmond. He had trained hard. He had fought back from surgeries and obstacles. He started the race wonderfully. It was running smoothly, strong, confident, when suddenly around the 150-meter mark, tragedy struck, and he collapsed on the track. It was a torn hamstring. He's grabbing his thigh. He's wincing in pain. He's down on the track. The crowd has grasped. Medical personnel are trying to rush towards him, and then something extraordinary happens. He gets up, and he is determined to hobble and hop and limp. As he winces and cries, he's determined to finish no matter what, and he's trying to make his way. But then something even more marvelous happens. From up high in the stands, there's a man who pushes past the security and over barriers and runs out onto the track. People are trying to stop him. He motions them away because it's Jim Redmond. It's Derek's father. And he is determined to help his son across the finish line. I love this moving scene because though the world might have seen a broken athlete, a father saw a beloved son, and he let him lean on him. He would carry him if he could across that line, because that's what love does. Love of a father cares more about the son than the son's accomplishments. And Jesus came into that room of those frightened disciples and said, "Peace," because what mattered to him was not how much they'd failed or how afraid they were. What mattered to him was the love relationship he had with them. On this Easter day, I don't know what might have you limping or what pain you might have been through. You might have locked yourself in for some kind of fear. But Jesus is here. There is good news that is so good that all the bad news has to change in light of that good news. It means that your story and the anxiety that you have had and that you might even feel today is part of your story, but not the end of your story, because there's been a triumph in the resurrection of Jesus Christ that has changed everything. It means that He's here, and He's here to help, and He loves you. You can say yes to the saving, loving arms of the Savior. His victory changes everything, and that's the gospel.